If my mind has not known the Lord, then what has it known so long? What has it known so long? What has it known so long? If my heart has not loved the Lord, then what has it loved so far? What has it loved so far? What has it loved so far? If my eyes have not seen the Lord, then what have they seen at all? What have they seen at all? What have they seen at all? May I know and love the Lord. May I see His blissful form. May I know and love the Lord. May I know and love
Asato ma sadgamaya Tamaso ma jyotirgamaya Mrityama amritam gamaya Avir ma edhi Rundrayate dakshinamukam Te namam pahinityam Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness unto light. Lead us from death to immortality. Reach us through and protect us evermore with your loving presence. Om, peace, peace, peace. Good morning. Thank you for the beautiful music this morning, some talented voices we have. It's very nice to be back. You can imagine how happy I am to be here, maybe if I tell you that yesterday at the desert retreat where I live in the Mojave, it was 107. And so this is not usually, not just a spiritual upliftment, but also a nice break from the weather. Anyway, the title of today's talk is From Willpower to Love. And the idea is that in our spiritual journey, we start off with this challenge of willpower. And what we'd like to do is develop to a state of consciousness where our love relieves us of any problems or challenges of willpower. So the idea behind today's talk is that this is a journey in our spiritual path. And what every religion will tell us is that if we exhibit this willpower, love will be our reward. Religion promises love in exchange for willpower, which might not be such a bad proposition, because I think we would all agree that willpower is something we'd like to have more of. Love also is something we'd like to have more of. And yet, when we read the details of the agreements, the contracts, what kind of willpower we have to exhibit in order to reach this love, we are tempted to throw the whole proposition out the window. Because the willpower challenges of religion seem insanely difficult. But we can't just toss the whole agreement out the window, because correspondingly, the love that religion promises is so wonderful. And what love is that? This love of religion is a love that is characterized by a higher consciousness, an elevation in our awareness. This is something like willpower and love, this higher consciousness, that we all want. We all want this elevation in our awareness. We want something that will lift us above the very best things that this world has to offer. It is higher. We want something higher than the best possible romance or love affair or career or any kind of recognition that we can get from our peer group. We want something better than all that. That's the higher consciousness that we want. And we want this higher consciousness also to safeguard us from all of life's terrors, all of the dangers of this world. We want this higher consciousness to lift us above and also protect us from the dangers below. And we want to know, once we have this higher consciousness, we want to know that we can never lose it. We want to be sure of it. I can never come back down. And we want this higher consciousness, well, I should say the promise of religion is that this higher consciousness fills our hearts. We have a full heart. From the full heart, the mind and the intellect are illumined. And the illumined mind and intellect see this world and the people and the creatures, the animals, everything in it, with the eye of love. And once we have this eye of love, our interaction with our fellow beings is a blessing to us and to them. We are blessings to this world. So this is the higher consciousness that religion promises. And so this is why it's so difficult to just throw out this whole proposition of the behavior that religion asks us to engage in or refrain from in order to get this higher consciousness, is because it's so wonderful. And deep down we know that we can't get this anywhere else. No matter how exciting our new romantic prospect is, or how promising our new career path is, however beautiful the new house we move into is, we know somewhere or other that we are going to come down from this. Maybe it'll be an hour, maybe it'll be a month, but the thrill isn't going to last. Do we doubt this? I don't think we doubt this. And yet we act like this isn't true. But if we were looking for a job, and we saw a job advertised that offered us money, $100,000 a year and a dental plan or something, we would perhaps consider this job, depending on our station. Now, if that job instead offered us unbroken realization of bliss, from which we would never come back down to ordinary consciousness, would we even consider that job? No, this is a scam, obviously. It's not even a very good one, right? I mean, this is duh. No job's going to offer me that. We know this. The one area where we actually are apt to make this mistake is romance. That's the one area where sometimes we actually think that we're getting the ultimate love in our lives forever. And we actually say and accept ridiculous things from each other when we are courting each other. We say just laughably stupid things like, "I'm going to love you forever." We say this to each other and we actually believe it. No, you're not going to love me forever. I mean, most optimistic scenario, you're going to love me until I die. At which point, I'm on my own. Obviously, we all know this. And like I say, that's clearly the most optimistic forecast, right? Far more likely in 6 months or a year, your eternal love is going to evaporate and I'm going to be on my own much quicker, right? That's much more realistic. But even perfectly most optimistic outcome, not possible, right? So we know somewhere or other in our consciousness that we can't get this anywhere else, that only religion can give this to us. And what's tantalizing about this is that this love that religion promises actually solves the impossible willpower challenges that it lays out for us. This is something else that kind of draws us into this agreement. How does that work? Swami Prabhavananda, the founder of this Vedanta society, in his commentary on the Narada Bhakti Sutras explains this. He says, when a devotee, through the grace of his guru and of God, attains to supreme love, he is illumined by the knowledge of God. He goes beyond this universe. He is free from selfish desires. Being free from selfish desires completely solves the problem. That solves the willpower problem. We are tempted by nothing. There is nothing to tempt us here if we are free from desire. There is nothing to strive for here if we are free from desire. And how does it free us from desire? Because, as I said in the beginning, our heart is full. The heart is full. When the heart is full, we lack nothing. He puts it this way. He says, such a devotee sees his beloved everywhere. He has an unbroken inner experience of the bliss of God. Unbroken. So no fear of losing this experience. We live in a universe seeing our beloved everywhere that is soaked in this bliss. So there's no possibility of temptation or resistance or ambition, any of these things. We're free from all these things, the will to do and the will not to do. We are no longer troubled by them. So I've already talked a little bit about how love solves the problem of willpower, but I haven't exactly talked about what the willpower challenge is. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that, and then I'd like to talk about a few practical ideas on how to strengthen our will and how these practices will lead us forward on the path of love. And finally, I'd like to offer a few words of encouragement because I think, as most of us already know, this path is very challenging and it's a marathon, not a sprint. So we have to be prepared for a kind of trench warfare with its ups and downs. So the willpower problem of religion is particularly odious at the outset. When we decide to take up a religious life, we find the willpower challenge extremely intimidating. This is put very well by St. Augustine, the famous theologian, in his book of Confessions. He says, "The new will which I began to have was not yet strong enough to overcome the other will, strengthened by long indulgence. So these two wills, one old, one new, one carnal, the other spiritual, contended with each other and disturbed my soul." And so something has happened. We have decided, for whatever reason, maybe we have come into contact with a spiritual personality that has influenced us to change our ways. Maybe we've just become disillusioned with worldly life, or perhaps we've had a little inkling of grace, some little ray of sunlight in our minds, in our awareness, and we have decided to change our ways, to change our direction, to change our habits. And we find that the old habits that we're no longer interested in indulging in have their own momentum. We want them to go now, but they're not ready to leave yet. St. Augustine puts it this way. He says, "It was myself indeed in both wills, yet more myself in that which I approved of in myself than in that which I disapproved of in myself." In other words, I'm on the side of the good guy in my mind. See, what he calls myself, Vedanta would call the buddhi, the discriminating faculty in the intellect, the decider in our minds. We all have this. We have a committee of voices in our heads. And all these different impulses come in. I should go for a walk, I need the exercise, but I have to go to work and file that report, but I'm hungry and I should go to the store, and all these things in milliseconds, all these things crowd into, and the decider comes in and says, I will go to work, but I will get a banana on the way out. Right? Make this decision and then we go. That's the buddhi, the discriminating faculty in the mind. Sounds simple enough, unless the impulses in our minds are opposed to each other and screaming and fighting. We have warfare inside of our minds because some of them want to do things very strongly and others want to do things that are completely opposed to those things very strongly, and the whole thing becomes shrill. And St. Augustine says that basically we have no one but ourselves to blame for this. He says, "It was through myself that habit had attained so fierce a mastery over me." We find our discriminating faculty is not quite strong enough to fight off our old habits. He says, "Habit had attained so fierce a mastery over me because I had willingly come where I now willed not to be." So the will got me here, and now I can't seem to will my way out of it. "Still bound to earth, I refused, O God, to fight on your side, as much afraid to be freed from all bonds, as I ought to have feared being trammeled by them." In other words, what he's talking about here is the misery of addiction. We're actually afraid to give up our poison. We don't see how we can live without this. Our old habit has become so ingrained. That's addiction, right? How will I can't admit that I have a problem because then I'll have to get rid of this thing that I've been doing so long and I don't see how to live without it, right? This painful revelation is pretty bleak. And St. Augustine is no anomaly. Most of us, at some point in our spiritual journey, come to this realization. Some of us come to it in the beginning, and that's why we come to spiritual life, we realize what an internal mess we have, and we need to clean it up, and that's why we start practicing yoga. Some of us come here without knowing this, and soon realize what the situation is inside of our minds. And then there are some of us that take decades to figure this out. But whenever it happens, whenever we get this dawning understanding of our own minds, what's really going on in there, when that happens, we have this awareness and we think, am I really this bad? I didn't really think I was in this bad of a shape. And it seems like these other people out in the world who aren't doing this, they seem like they're functioning okay. And yet I feel like I'm kind of a basket case with all these conflicting ideas in my mind. I'm hard to step forward. Yeah, this, we think at this time maybe this wasn't such a great idea, this spiritual path. This objection, I guess you could call it, was voiced by Swami Arupeshananda, one of Holy Mother's disciples. He complained to her about this. He said, the man in the street, he says this to Holy Mother, the man in the street whose spiritual consciousness has not been awakened is quite happy. But those whose consciousness has been partially awakened and who want to realize God suffer a great deal. They alone know how much they suffer. Yes, worldly pursuits in this sense are easier. There's my goal, I'm going to go after it, and there's not a whole lot of internal conflict like there is in religion. This willpower problem in the world isn't so bad. It's still difficult, but it's not the challenge that it is in spiritual life. I had a good example of this when I was working in the lab. There was another graduate student there who was kind of an earthy type. So he was a bit of a womanizer and a drinker, at least relative to the other graduate students who were basically good boys. It's all boys in the lab. He was kind of a troublemaker, and he'd go out to bars and get in fights and this kind of stuff. I used to call him Clubber because he'd go to clubs and club people. But with all that, he was bright, ambitious, and talented. And in spite of his relatively destructive lifestyle, he managed to succeed in, well, I shouldn't, succeed is a big word. He got it into his head that he was going to solve the controlled fusion problem. So succeeding in that path is quite a bit. We've been working on that for 70 years plus, and we still haven't got it. But he is directing experiments right now, the biggest magnetic confinement facility in the country, and he's been recognized by the American Physical Society as a fellow. So he's doing quite well. He hasn't solved the clean energy problem, but there's other avenues. Nevertheless, in spite of his earthy lifestyle, he's managed to have enough willpower to achieve his objectives. And it's a good example of what is required of us for a successful will. What we need to have a successful will in the world or in the world of the spirits. What exactly is it that gets us our objective? This is explained by the famous psychologist William James. He says, some persons are born with an inner constitution which is harmonious and well-balanced from the outset. Their impulses are consistent with one another. Their will follows without trouble the guidance of their intellect. Their passions are not excessive, and their lives are little haunted by regrets. That sounds really good. That sounds like a very advanced being. Someone without much inner turmoil, someone whose will follows without trouble the dictates of the intellect. Maybe this person has been practicing spiritual disciplines for many lives to iron out all his internal wrinkles. Not necessarily. I think this also paints a pretty good portrait of my friend in the lab. He actually managed to fulfill all this criteria and have a fairly harmonious constitution without much regrets. And if you compare that to St. Augustine, who I just read, he's a basket case. He belongs in a mental hospital, right? And if we stop there, then the worldly people who achieve their goals are the saints. And the saints, at least at the outset, are psychological cases, right? But of course, there's something else going on, and that is that fulfilling these criteria is much easier in the worldly life than it is in the spiritual life. For one thing, what does he say? He says, the passions are not excessive. Well, I already said that my friend was actually a pretty passionate guy. But it wasn't enough to derail his career path. It wasn't enough to land him in jail or a 12-step program. So he managed to get, and even if you do land in jail or a 12-step program, still sometimes you can overcome that and wind up successful in your career, run for political office or whatever it is. In spiritual life, by contrast, this idea of excessive passion, so much more narrowly defined, brutal in fact. Krishna in the Gita says, already here on earth, before his departure, let a man be the master of every impulse, lust begotten or fathered by anger. Thus he finds Brahman, thus he is happy. Master every impulse. That is what religion is asking us to do. Master every impulse. Not just pull back when you think you're going to get into trouble and keep your life between the ditches on the road well enough to get through college or run for political office or whatever it is we're trying to do. Not good enough. Perfect mastery. This is what religion asks of us. And this is why we read this and think, well, who's going to do that? That's, this is not possible. That's one reason. Another reason is faith. He had faith in his goals. My friend had faith in his goals. He believed in clean energy. And why not? It's a great goal. We need clean energy. He felt like maybe he's got a shot at solving the confinement problem in controlled fusion. He's going to go for it. It sounds really good. What's the problem with that? Why wouldn't you have faith in that goal? See, religion asks us to think more deeply. If we accept this kind of transactional reality that we have, the apparent world as the final reality, if we accept that, then yes, why not go for clean energy? That's what this planet needs. Somebody's got to solve the problem. Why not me? I've got what it takes, he thought. He might. I don't know. But the problem is that religion gives us God. God is this incredible being, this incredible intelligence that has willed this universe into existence, to paraphrase Sri Ramakrishna. He has created this universe, you and I, plants, animals, oceans, stars, galaxies, by an act of will. An act of will. Think about that. I mean, will. It's hard to just will myself away from the cookies, right? He can will all this. So before I go there, you might think, well, that's a little naive, right? I mean, there's a God in heaven that's created the whole universe and you and I and all these things, and doesn't that belong to like a bygone era? It does kind of sound that way, I admit. But the fact is we actually, even now, are debating this seriously in the scientific circles. There's something called the simulation theory. Has anybody heard the simulation theory? You've heard it. So the simulation theory is the idea, essentially, that we are all living in a video game created by space aliens. That's the simulation theory. And it may sound cracked, but there are famous scientists who advocate this. Niels deGrasse Tyson is a famous astrophysicist who advocates this. Elon Musk famously said that there is a 1,000,000,000 to 1 chance that we are living in a simulation. That's not hyperbole. There are actually statistical arguments, I wouldn't say they're convincing, but they're at least coherent, that support the idea that there is a 1,000,000,000 to 1 chance that we are living in a simulation. This is a video game run by a higher intelligence. And they have these kind of amusing ideas, the finite speed of lights from the theory of relativity. That is a sign of the limitation of the alien's processor speed. The CPU of the alien's computer is limited by the speed of lights. Sounds comical. The fluctuations in the holographic space-time are apparently pixelation on the alien's computer screen. If you haven't heard this before, it probably sounds a little bit cracked. But, like I said in the beginning, there are serious scientists lining up on both sides of this issue to debate it. Personally, I don't think it is a scientific question. I think it's a metaphysical question. I think Swami Vivekananda says when you push these things too far, you push physics too far, it becomes metaphysics. And I think that's where we are. And there's some other scientists that also think that way. But the point is this idea of a superintelligence that has created this world, and you and I, and the universes, the galaxies, the black holes, all this stuff, that is not some artifact from a bygone era. It is basically, simulation theory is that redecorated, essentially. And so, if we accept this proposition that there is a superintelligence that has created all this, did he put me here to solve the confinement problem in controlled fusion? Is that why I'm here? Does he need my help with that? Doesn't seem like it. It may be necessary for me on my spiritual journey to solve this problem for some other reason, but it's hard to think that such an intelligence would need my help with anything at all, any of Earth's problems, whatever they are. And so I would actually occasionally bring this up with my friend in the lab. I would bring up these ideas. And I have to confess, he scored against me there. He said, you know, you're getting a doctorate in physics, but you could never make it as a janitor. And I said, well, why do you say this? And he said, because you couldn't sweep the floor without knowing why you had to sweep the floor, you know. Okay, touche. But the idea is that because he took this apparent world to be real, he had faith in his goal. Faith in his goal is what allowed him to control himself. Because faith, if we have faith in the goal, we have love for the goal. That is true in religious life, that is true in secular life. To the extent that we have faith in our goal, we have love for our goal. He believed in his goal enough that he felt that attraction for it, and his attraction for it was strong enough to keep his wayward impulses in check, to keep him from going too far afield, to derail his future. And just as it is far more difficult to control our passions in spiritual life, what is asked of us is so much more challenging, so also it is so much more difficult for us to have faith in our goal in spiritual life. In fact, Sri Ramakrishna once told Swami Vivekananda, in fact, I said this here a few months ago, he told Swami Vivekananda that not one person in 20 million has real faith. Yes, we have millions of Buddhists and Christians and Hindus and all that, but he said not 1 in 20 million has real faith. What is real faith? He says, suppose there is a thief in the room and he gets to know that there is a mass of gold in the next room and only a very thin partition between the two rooms. What will be the condition of that thief? He will not be able to sleep at all. His brain will be actively thinking of some means of getting at the gold, and he will think of nothing else. Do you believe that a man could believe in God and not go mad to see him? If a man sincerely believes that there is an immense, infinite mine of joy and that it can be reached, would not that man go mad in his struggle to reach it? So if we really had that faith, then we would really have that love, and the impossible willpower problem would be solved. And this is true, as I say, of anything that we do, any endeavor that we undertake. Faith in the objective we must have if we hope for success. And so, this is much more difficult in spiritual life. And as I said before, Swami Arupeshananda complained to Holy Mother about this. He says, guys in the world got it easy. Us spiritual guys who are struggling for this, we're miserable. What was her response? Yes, she said, you're miserable. She said, how true it is. Ordinary people are quite happy. They eat, drink, and make merry. The devotees alone know no end of suffering. So that's it. Yes, you've accepted a very difficult job. We have accepted an impossible undertaking, and we're going to suffer for it. And so, I think now would be a good time to talk about maybe some practices that will make this job just a little bit easier. So a few practical willpower ideas that have worked for me over the years, I'm going to share with you. And as I alluded to in the beginning, there's two aspects of willpower, you could say. There's the will to stick to a program, and there's the will not to, the won't power, you could call it, to resist temptation, right? These two aspects of willpower we have, ambition and resistance. So this first one I'm going to talk about is more about won't power than willpower. And some of us are better at willpower and some of us are better at won't power. I think I'm probably not so good at won't power. I'm probably a little bit better at willpower. This particular practice, very simple. Very simple. 2 sentences given by Holy Mother. And if we just stick to these 2 sentences, our whole lives can be changed. She says, do you know the significance of japa and other spiritual practices? By these, the dominance of the sense organs is subdued. What does that mean? It means the body has desires. We want to touch, we want to taste, we want to see and swallow everything, right? That's what the body wants to do. It wants to do all these things, and the mind thinks, well, maybe that one's not such a good idea. And the body just has its desire and pushes us forward anyway. And then we're filled with remorse after we do it. Right? Sri Ramakrishna gives the example of the camel in the thorny bush, eating it again and again while its mouth bleeds. And this practice, it doesn't exactly strengthen our won't power. What it does is it makes it less necessary. We don't need to be so strong in our won't power because the demand from our desires is not so shrill. They have been mitigated, attenuated. This works. It's not a magic bullet. It's a slow burn. It takes time. But it works, and if we stick to it, it can absolutely change our entire lives. Just repeat the name of the Lord. Japam. Japam. Just repeat the name of the Lord. It works like magic. How does this lead us forward on the path of love? Because once we see, after some time, and it doesn't actually take that long, to notice a difference 6 months of this, and you're going to realize there's a difference in the way that you are influenced by your desires. You're going to feel it. And the longer we stick with it, the more profound the transformation becomes. And of course, naturally, we are filled with gratitude. At some point, we realize where we've come, and we are filled with gratitude for it. Like I said, it's a slow burn, not a magic bullet. It would be nice to have a magic bullet. So, what's the magic bullet? I've talked about this one before, too. It's not perfectly magic, but it is a bullet. And that's gratification delay. This also works. You've had a terrible day at work and you want to, whatever your poison is, Ben and Jerry's and Netflix or going out in the town or whatever it is that we're going to do. We've had a bad day. Or maybe we haven't had a bad day. Maybe we've had a hard week and we've earned this. We've earned our poison. We deserve to have this experience of whatever it is. It's difficult to say no. Once the mind, it starts egging you on with this throughout the week, it gets, this has been a tough week. On Friday, I'm really going to blah, 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 right? It's hard. By the time Friday afternoon comes around, it's hard to just say, no, I'm not doing that anymore. But delay is possible. And then all these tricks that the mind has to tell us that we deserve it or we need it or whatever it is, it's actually not that bad for us. We won't feel bad after it's over this time. Whatever little rationalizations it comes up with, we delay them. We take 20 minutes before we do it, whatever it is, 20 minutes, we go to our shrine and we unload it all on the Divine Mother. Here's all the reasons why I want to do this. Here's all the reasons why I deserve to do this. Here's all the reasons why I don't think it's such a bad idea. Whatever it is, however that works. We unload our rationalizations on the Divine Mother. And then what happens? This helps because it's quite possible, from my experience, that after this 20 minutes is over, you're not going to feel the same way about doing it anymore. And if you do, and you do it, and it's over, you're not going to feel nearly as guilty about it. So it does help. How does it lead us onto this path of love? Swami Paramananda explains this. He says, the Divine Mother wants us to be happy. When we allow unhappiness or depression to enter us, we act as though she is not sufficient for our joy. We are her children, and we should be blissful. So does this make sense? When we want something, when we want our poison, what are we saying? We are saying, I am not satisfied with the state of my mind right now. That's what we're saying. I am not satisfied with my current state of mind. The present moment is unacceptable. That's what I'm saying. So, what we can do during this time is to directly contradict that with an assertion of gratitude. How do we do this? Let's try it. Take a deep breath, close your eyes, and take a slow, deep breath through the nose. Try and become aware of the space around your body. We're in this temple. Let us try and become aware of the space outside the temple. Let us try and extend our awareness to the infinite space in all directions. And now we say, I am grateful for this moment. I am grateful for right now. I am grateful for the Divine Mother's presence in my life. Okay, open your eyes. This is a direct effort to shift our consciousness. Of course, we don't have to be in the temple to do it. It just takes a few seconds. Like I say, it's not a perfectly magic bullet, but it is a bullet. We are in real time asserting a contradictory mood onto our minds. And of course, it should be pretty clear how this advances us in the path of love. We are expressing gratitude for right now, gratitude toward the Divine Mother. It's another version of this, which it looks like I'm actually kind of running late here, but I'll just do this in a hurry. Swami Prabhavananda, the founder of this place, he asked his guru, Swami Brahmananda, when he was a young monk, to free his mind from lust. He asked this favor of his guru. And the guru said, I could do that for you. He was that incredible. He could actually free his mind from lust. He said, I could do that for you. But then you would lose the joy of the struggle. And I thought, joy of the struggle? What is joy of the struggle? I mean, that doesn't make any sense to me. It's like hot ice or dry water or something, joy of the struggle. I mean, if we are struggling, it means we're not accepting the current situation. We're trying to change it to increase our joy. We don't have enough joy. And if we're joyful, the odds that we're going to struggle against that, well, why would we do that? So what is joy of the struggle? I couldn't figure it out. And, the late teens, early 20s, I read this, and I puzzled over it for a long time. Same thing. When we are dissatisfied with our lives, with our state of mind, the same exercise, and we just assert this truth. Lord, I am grateful to be struggling to overcome my desires. I am grateful to be struggling to find you. These are direct counteroffensives to our willpower weakness. That's what they are. We just assert these things, and we find after a time that they gain their own power. And we should be grateful for this struggle, because Arupananda's happy man in the street, however happy he is, he's not addressing the problem. We are at least, however difficult our spiritual practice is, we have at least identified the problem, and we are addressing it. We are trying to work on a solution. We should be grateful for this. And so this brings me to the last willpower exercise that I engage in, that I have time for. And that is honoring ourselves. We have to appreciate our own efforts, because in all likelihood, we are going to fail and give into temptation or whatever else it is, forget to get out of bed to meditate in the morning. How many times? So many times we're going to do this. We have to be able to forgive our failings, because forgiving our failings is part of accepting ourselves. Part of accepting ourselves is a step towards loving ourselves. Because if we don't love ourselves, we can't love anyone else. We can't love God or each other. We can't criticize ourselves and hate ourselves and love anyone else. This is actually alluded to in the brahmachari vows. The first vows that we take as monastics, we vow not to brood over past mistakes. Not to brood over past mistakes. Because it can develop into a kind of destructive self-criticism. And we have to be nice to ourselves. Swami Ramakrishnananda tells us, he says, do not be displeased with yourself. You are the child of God. And by being displeased with yourself, you are displeased with God's child. Honor yourself then. For you are the child of God, and by creating you, he has not made any mistake. For he is above all mistakes. So we are loved. We are not mistakes. We are not accidents. And so we can't complain about ourselves. And when we stop complaining about ourselves, we'll also find when we forgive ourselves that we can forgive other people. Because we can't complain about other people either. We can't complain about this world. As it says in the Gita, the Lord is everywhere and always perfect. And we are trying to realize that. That means there's nothing to complain about, no complaints. We cannot complain our way to enlightenment. Believe me, I've tried. And I'm not the only one. If we could complain our way to enlightenment, there would be a lot more enlightened people. It doesn't work. And the fact is that as long as we have desires, we're going to have temptations. And we're going to have desires until we reach perfection, until our heart is full. But as long as we have these desires, we will have the temptations, and we will occasionally fail. We will occasionally give in. And we have to be able to forgive ourselves and not complain about our failures, not complain about how difficult the path is. Swami Arupeshananda continues. He says, "You need not complain that you are not successful in your attempt. So it is with almost everyone. Only a few who are already perfect, a few Mahatmas, can assert that they are thoroughly pure in body, mind, and action. Therefore, take heart, and though you fall every now and then, try to rise up. Every child, before it learns to walk, falls down 100,000 times." Of course, none of us want to fall down. No one wants to fall down. We all want to be perfect. We want to do everything right. And yet the paradox is that at the same time we want to improve. If you do everything right, you're perfect already. You're not going to improve. These two things can't go together. In order to improve, we must make mistakes. We must learn, which means we're going to get some things wrong. But we don't want to do that. As the saying goes, everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to do what it takes to get there. And we are, however poorly, trying to do what it takes to get there. And so we should honor ourselves for that. We should accept ourselves for that. And when we honor and accept ourselves for that, we will be more prone to honoring and accepting others. And in this way we grow along this path of love. Our love for ourselves, our love for our fellows who are also struggling in their way. We'll see that, and our desire to criticize them for their shortcomings will be mitigated because we'll realize that they are struggling in their way, along their path, with their shortcomings, just like we are. In this way, we will become more loving, better, happier people. Because complaining, while it gives us a kind of ego rush, it makes us feel superior about this person or that person, complaining about them, it does not make us happy. It doesn't make us happy. It's a weird little ego trip that we go on that gives us a kind of rush, but it doesn't give us happiness. I'll conclude with Swami Ramakrishnananda. He says, "If I am God's child, I am of his caste. And if he is perfectly pure, I am also perfectly pure. What is the use of imagining yourself a sinner? You are infinite. It is sheer ignorance that makes you imagine that you are finite. In back of everyone, there is infinity. There is infinite power latent in you. So don't be shy. You are sure to succeed in any path." May the good Lord bless you and keep you. May he make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May he lift his countenance upon you and give you peace. May good betide all. May happiness come to all. May all see the face of truth. And be fortified with the armor of love, goodwill, joy, and understanding. Om. Peace, peace, peace. Peace be unto us. Peace be unto all. Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om Tat Sat.
May thy name fill up my heart with every breath. May thy grace guide my each and every step. May thy love fill up my life as thy light shines oh so bright through each day and every night. My beloved, dearest beloved, pray that you will purify my heart through every role of life that I do play a part, and in each face that I do see, may thine eyes look back at me. I pray as one will ever be my beloved, and in each face that I do see, may thine eyes look back at me. I pray as one will ever be my beloved, dearest beloved, my beloved.
So before we move on, we have a few announcements here. Next, well, first of all, on the 4th of July in Trabuco, there's the annual celebration for Vivekananda's Mahasamadhi. So those of you who don't know, Sri Ramakrishna once said that Swami Vivekananda would be able to give up his body by an act of will through yoga. And he did this in Samadhi. He was in basically okay health. He never really had good health in his life, but on this particular day, things weren't that bad. And he talked about a few things, and then went up to his room and told them to lock the door and meditated, and he was gone. They found a couple little blood drops on the side of his eyes, and he just left. And that day, he actually appeared to Swami Ramakrishnananda, who I quoted today. He appeared to him in a vision and said, "Brother Sashi." See, he was in South India, probably 1,000 miles away or something, 600, something like that. So he couldn't get the cable, he couldn't get the news. Everybody else around, the locals all got it right away, but he wasn't going to know. So Vivekananda appeared to him in a vision and said, "Brother Sashi, I have spat off the body." And so anyway, we celebrate this as a triumph of spirit over flesh, mind over matter, maybe you could say, on the 4th of July. That's in Trabuco in Orange County. And then Saturday, I think, I don't see it here, but there should be the Vivekananda Day in Pasadena on Saturday after that. So I'm guessing that that's a yes, even though it's not on this piece of paper. That would be Saturday in Pasadena. You can look on the bullet and see that one. And then next Sunday here, we have Swami Shivarchanananda, who is the new guy in the St. Louis Center. So he's been in this country, I don't know, I think less than a year. And he's a younger guy, probably, maybe even younger than I am. So I guess we had Kripamananda yesterday, and then I think Krishna Prana Mataji is still, she is still conducting the Wednesday class, but it looks like she switched books. So I guess she finished Swami Adbhutananda, and now we're doing Swami Premananda. Memories of a Loving Soul. It's actually a wonderful book, too. I don't know how she's doing it, but it's great stuff in there. So that's it. You're all welcome to all these things. Your friends are also welcome. And I will meet you at the door and just say hi, and then I'll come back in here and we can chat a little bit. And then hopefully we'll move on with our path from willpower to love. Okay.
So I guess like I have a hard time reconciling one path with other. So I'll just give an example. So let's say you go out to drink and you drink a lot beyond what you normally do. You have a hangover and then you say like, well, I don't like the effects of hangover, so maybe I should drink less. But if you were to like view your actions from a different perspective, that life is an adventure, if I do it full-heartedly and I'm willing to accept whatever it comes because of the actions, you drink as much and you get hangover, but now you don't think that the hangover is bad. It's like, oh, this is part of the experience that I was willing to have, which was to drink as much as I wanted. Would that not also be a path to like kind of realizing all of your wants and needs? So isn't us sometimes judging like this is good versus this is bad causes a lot of the inner turmoil? So if you didn't judge it, but you were like, I'll just do whatever the heck I want to do, and whatever comes, I'm also willing to accept that. What would be inherently wrong about that?
Well, yeah, inherently wrong. So the question is, does that work? I thought it kind of worked. Yeah. Did everybody hear that?
Yes, he's loud enough.
Yeah, I thought so. Okay.
Just like me, I'm loud enough.
All right, yeah, you don't need a microphone.
No.
So, yeah, what's inherently wrong with anything? No, nothing is inherently wrong with anything, right? I mean, this whole universe is just a bunch of atoms changing bonds with other atoms. The only thing that is good or bad is because thinking makes it so. We think this is good, that's bad. You can't really give that up. You can't really, that is the discriminating faculty. That is the buddhi. Theoretically, if you could have same-sidedness for everything all the time, you're probably not here. You're probably not born on this planet because you've already finished. I mean, same-sidedness everywhere, which is what you're talking about. If you have that, you see no difference between drinking and not drinking, and you accept everything perfectly. You're finished. There's nowhere to go from that. But the fact is we're not there. We can say things like, okay, I'm going to drink and get hungover and I'm going to accept that and not regret it. Well, that's not how it's going to happen. You're going to get hungover and you're going to crash your car and you're going to think, why did I do that? Or however that goes. You're going to have remorse. You're going to have remorse. And then when you have remorse, you're going to have self-criticism and self-doubt and all these other obstacles that present themselves to you on your spiritual path. Theoretically, you're right. If we could just have same-sidedness everywhere for everything, problem solved. But we don't. And the fact is, what we are trying to do here is, whether we like it or not, avoid pain and seek pleasure. That's what we do. We seek pleasure and we avoid pain. And if you can see pleasure and pain as one, yeah, then you can drink your fill, you can take your fentanyl, you can do all that stuff. No one alive in this world that I have met has reached that state, in the monastery or out of the monastery. And we can talk a good talk. We can say, I'm accepting the consequences, this or that. We can't fool ourselves. We can't fool ourselves with these things. And so we have to be true to ourselves. That was the beginning with St. Augustine, where he says, he has this big confession, where he realizes just what situation he's in, just how helpless he is from his own past actions. That painful admission that he has in the beginning of today's talk, where he lists all these things about his will and how he's struggling and suffering, that is rigorous personal honesty. Rigorous personal honesty, which is, no matter how painful it is absolutely required of us in spiritual life. It's one of the reasons people don't like spiritual life, is because it requires a rigorous personal honesty. And most of us, and I should also back up, we're here to experience certain things. So to, whatever it is. You gave the example of drinking or whatever other experiences we have, we learn from those. We learn from these experiences. And then we move on to higher joys. It's always seeking higher joy. Drinking and doing that is one kind of joy. And then after we've had that, we go, okay, let's move up. Let's elevate our joy. Constantly seeking higher and higher joy here. That's what we're doing. Until we get the highest joy. That's what I said in the beginning. We want this higher consciousness that is above the very best that this world has to offer. The best alcohol buzz, the best relationship, the best job, the best everything. Better than the best. And we work our way up the joy ladder until, religion tells us, we reach the ultimate joy, the ultimate perfection, which fills us with love, where we don't need anything else. We're filled, we're full, our hearts are full. And not only do we not need anything else, we're not afraid of anything. When our heart is full, all we can do is be loving and be joyful. That's when the heart is full. And we keep trying higher and higher joys until we reach that full heart. And of course, Vedanta says we're all going to get there sooner or later. Okay, yeah.
Yes, let's all get on the right track. Just like I was Amtrak and freight engineer, we blew the whistle too long to the short each crossing, and I only killed 5 people. They used me as a tool to commit suicide. And I had a nephew die last summer of fentanyl. Thought it was an anxiety pill, but with 3 of his friends, 2 of them died. And they got him to get Narcan. Wasted life, 25 years old, on artificial happiness. Instead of drug-ridden rush, let's get an adrenaline rush through kayaking, surfing, swimming, bicycling, hiking. And so, I'm not advertising my podcast, but what you need to do is go to the alcohol and the drug centers. I've been listening to some horror stories. This one young man, he's now got a job, he's 31, he went through 3 revivals, foaming at the mouth from fentanyl. And I don't want to see any more parents burying their children like what happened to my nephew last summer.
Okay.
You're on the right track because you're preaching, be kind to everybody, kindness is the key. This division in this country is just outstanding. I'll never vote for someone like Trump, ever. His character's in the toilet, and he won't even be dog catcher 20 before you watch it. He won't even be making it.
Okay.
Thank God.
So I didn't hear a question, but
Oh, the question is, what's your solution to the young kids that are misdirected, misguided, and they think they're getting a really good drug rush, and they're dying by the last month in our county, 21 died. They tell me the numbers at the Cottage Hospital, they don't tell me the names. And it's getting worse, even though I'm trying to have musicians do something besides sit on the couch and do drugs. I have a hobby or interest, they're not listening, and I go to the high schools and colleges, and they go, it's not in Mali, and I said, oh yes it is, it killed my nephew, and then they go, that old man's got a little wisdom. 68, I don't have anything else to do, I'm retired.
okay.
And listen to my musicians, because Will Bremen and his girlfriend Lindsay, he got 8th on The Voice, and she's auditioning this year, and they both have 5 octaves. I have some of the best young artists that sing, and I do also culture in Santa Barbara, the museums, Tampa Garden. That is the best. And that 5 Mile Loop with the redwoods, it just makes me feel like I'm in Nirvana.
Okay.
What was that? Was that God's answer?
I think it's the next question. Yeah, you? Okay.
Would you go to these counseling sessions at all the rescue centers like I've been going to? Tell these kids they need to get with the Hindu religion.
Well, I live far away. I'm in the Mojave Desert. So, I mean, theoretically I would if I was here and we could talk about it. But since I'm 150 miles away, probably I'm not the best person.
Santa Barbara's as bad as Los Angeles.
Okay. Yeah.
Pranam Swamiji, and your lecture was wonderful. Thank you for enlightening all of us. My first question is, you talk about 3 different paths today with little bit yoga and Divine Mother, japa, and then understand through self-love how you can love everybody. So is it combination of those three paths to reach further in your goal in spiritual path, or it's any one of them, or combination of all those three?
I found that the more you use, the better. The more you do, the better. It's just like yoga. People say, am I a karma yogi or a jnana yogi or bhakti? You know, they ask these questions. All the yogas, practice them all. Practice all the methods. They work at different times. The one that I would say that should never be given up and should be practiced regularly is repetition of the Lord's name. If you want to overcome whatever it is that you are going through in life, it's like I say, it's not a magic bullet. It's a slow development. But repetition of the Lord's name reduces our desires. It's this gradual abatement of desire that we experience when we repeat the Lord's name. And we have to do this for ourselves to be convinced. Like I said today, to see that it's working, that it has an effect in our lives, maybe a few months is all it takes. But then we think, yeah, okay, now I'm pretty good, I don't have to do it anymore. Wrong. You have to keep this practice up. And the longer we keep it up, the better our lives get. That's this sort of background practice that I would say we should all undertake, because as I tried to say today, it's going to make us better and happier. The other things that I suggested, gratitude for the present moment, gratitude for the presence of the Divine Mother, gratitude for being on this spiritual path, all those gratitude where you breathe and you try and imagine the space around you and you assert these psychological counteroffensives to your present mood. All those practices, those you pick and choose depending on the moment, its needs, all those things. Those are more for when you're down and you need something now, because the japa practice is a background thing that is slowly working in the background on your subconscious mind to change your desires. And tonight, when I'm in trouble, I want to go drinking or whatever I want to do, then at those times, to breathe in deeply and try and just remind ourselves that we are grateful for right now, to be grateful for right now. And try and feel the present moment in infinite space. This is something that works. You just try it. It's an exercise. We have to experiment with these things. Spiritual life is an experiment. So we try this and see if it works for us. I don't know anybody that it doesn't work for, but we have to try it for ourselves to be convinced. You had another one? Yeah.
Thank you. So I want your idea, something just recently happened. I was in Kauai, Hawaii, and I went there to surf and see the island. In this trip, it was always raining, so one morning I woke up and did little meditation, and I was looking through the window and I saw sun is about to come, after the rain. So I was driving through the island, and I was praying and I was saying, I came to island and I want to see the beauty of the island. And all of a sudden, completely sunny, rain stopped, and I can see the entire bay. But that view I never experienced in my life. And of course I was praying before that, and an unfathomable view, blue sky, blue ocean, all the blooming flowers. So I want your opinion, was that something Lord bought for me, or it's just a coincidence, or something I was dreaming to see and it just manifested in front of me?
Well, does it matter? Does it matter?
We're all hoping that.
How important is it to explain these things? You had a beautiful moment and you're thankful to God. What more do you need? Why did it come? Who cares why it came? It was there. You had a beautiful moment and you appreciated that moment and you were grateful to God, and it was a wonderful morning. I don't know why you got it. You're lucky. You had good karma. You did a good deed in a past life. It's the will of the Divine Mother. I have no idea why it happened. Does it matter? It happened. You had this morning of joy. You were grateful for it then. Be grateful for it now. Right? We make things too complicated. I do it too. It's not just you.
But I want to confirm through you, because you were there
Sounds good. I wish I was. Yeah, you had another
And
one.
how do you resist temptation? I want your take on it.
Well, we were talking about that today, right?
That's why I brought
Right.
it up.
Well, I just said this idea now, I'll repeat it, that when we are tempted to do whatever it is, what does it mean? It means that we are not satisfied with the current state of our mind. That's what it means. Our mind is unhappy, agitated, depressed, and we want to fire the dopamine receptors. We want to light up the reward center in the brain to counteract our current mood. This is the motivation behind whatever our temptation is. Alcohol, drugs, or anything else, whatever it is, doesn't matter.
Replace it with a 10K run instead of alcohol.
Well, not everyone can run 10K, and so...
Well, they start out doing 2 blocks and they go further and further. That's how I did it in high school.
Okay. So the idea was that I said today to stop, identify. It's actually usually not that hard to be aware when we're unhappy. When we're happy, sometimes we forget everything, but when we're unhappy, we know we're unhappy. And so generally we know we're unhappy. And when we do, at those times, then what we do is stop, breathe deeply, like I said today, like we did today. Breathe deeply. When we do this, try and remember to keep your shoulders square as best you can, to keep your chin elevated as best you can. Breathe in slowly through the nose, and try to expand our awareness gradually outward until we have an idea of the infinite space around us. And then thank the Divine Mother, the Lord, the universe, for right now.
Yes.
Be grateful for right now. Lord, I am grateful to you for this moment. This is, like I said, a psychological counteroffensive to our negativity, to our bad moods, to our needs, to our sense of lack. We have a sense of lack that we are trying to fill with something which is actually poisonous. And this exercise, this brief little exercise, which can be done anywhere, that exercise is a direct contradiction to that psychological state that encourages us to yield to temptation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, I guess it's like a personal gripe. So, if I have a moment of challenge, I'm fully aware that I'm going to use the Lord's name or anybody that I esteem highly. And I understand it's a handicap, and I use it as a handicap. But if I'm being very honest to myself, I think I'm through and through an agnostic, in the sense that I cannot prove or disprove either way if God exists. Have you ever had these kind of thoughts, and how did you reconcile to the fact that like you believe there is a higher power and that there is love?
Okay. Yes, okay, we can doubt the existence of God. But we cannot doubt the existence of ourselves, right? No one doubts that. You cannot doubt the existence I am. I am. Not that I am a man, not that I am a student or an office worker or a monk, just I am. That I am that we have, without any modifiers following it. Not I am Democrat, Republican, any of those things. Just I am. That I am is one. Just intellectually you can see that. If you strip off all the modifiers, my I am is no different than your I am. I'm white, you're brown. I'm wearing orange, you're not. These are all upadis, extrinsics, external to I am. That I am is one. That I am is one. There's only one I am. Because after you strip off all the trappings, all the decorations, there's no difference. between the I am in your mind and the I am in my mind. The difference is my I am says monk living in the desert, right? Your I am says worker living in Santa Barbara or whatever it says, right? I'm an agnostic living in Santa Barbara, whatever. But if we strip all that away, there's one I am. That I am, that one I am, stripped of all its trappings and attachments, is divine, is joy, is behind the consciousness of all. It's no different than the I am in the plants, in the bugs, in the animals. One I am. So that you can believe in. You have to. Logically, there's no escaping. If you strip off all this stuff and just stop with I am, that's it. Just one I am. And so instead, maybe, I don't know. I mean, really, for your particular path, do you need to pray to God or do you need to try and remember I am? These are two distinct paths. There's you could say, two kinds of people who join the monastery, or who take up religious life in general, I guess I should say. And that is, one wants to realize God, and the other wants to realize who or what am I. These are two kind of different approaches, especially in the beginning. At some point we realize, hopefully, what God said to Moses in the book of Exodus, which is, I am that I am. That I am that you all have, I am that I am. But to get there, to get to I am that I am, some people pray to God. That's generally my approach. Other people try and find out who or what am I. More jnani approach, also Buddhistic approach. What am I? So which path is for you? I don't know. You need a spiritual teacher, a spiritual guide to tell you those things. But you cannot doubt your own existence. And the basic teaching is that your essential nature, the essence of you, the I am underneath everything that's on top, is divine.
I think if we find a purpose that we feel like we're going to be more in tune with the world and we're going to help each other in times of anxiety and stress, I always seek out my friends and then they help me get back on track. And that's what it's all about. Namaste.
Okay. You got anything else?
Anyway, thank you.
Okay.
Namaste.
Namaste. Yes, one more. All right.
So you were giving a sermon today. You have given a lot of sermons.
Ah.
Do you ever fall in the trapping of feeling your ego come up when you do a particular
Oh,
thing?
are you kidding? Giving these talks pushes all your buttons. I've talked about this with the other monks, and absolutely, you live in a spiritual community and you find that your brother monks push your buttons, and then you go move out into the desert and you live, without that sort of sangha. You got a lot of time by yourself. The Lord does not forget your address. He knows where you live, and He knows how to push your buttons, and it's going to happen. And yeah, there's a whole ego trip. I'm not worthy. What am I doing up there talking to these people? What do I really have to share to them? And, all these kinds of things come to your mind. I think that kind of thing happens in whatever we do. I mean, okay, talking on Sunday is one thing, but whatever we undertake, the ego gets in the way and says, I, right? That's what it does. And what I do is I just, push that aside. Okay, well then go away. If you're not worthy of doing this, then just leave me alone because I've got this work to do. Or however you want to get rid of it. It's just the ego telling you, or I'm so wonderful, or whatever, whatever your particular ego trip is. We all have one. And so, yeah, that's the challenge of life. There's a great Swami in San Francisco, Swami Ashokananda. He has some beautiful lectures. You might really like them. They're still available in books. He died in 1968, I think. But he's got some very well thought out and very kind of analytical, jnani talks that he gives that might really appeal to you. Anyway, He said it's possible to function entirely. Everything that we do, we can go to the car, we can get in the car, go to the gas station, go to work, do everything we do at work, come home, all of it, without any ego, without any sense of I. He said that it's possible. It's hard for me to kind of imagine how I would do that, just being completely egoless and doing these things. Yet there are great spiritual teachers who say that this is possible. It's possible to act without the first personal pronoun. What Sri Ramakrishna advises us to do, see, that's an extreme example, and I really don't know how that would come about. But the practical teaching that Sri Ramakrishna gives, which I think is very good, is that we have this I with multiple characteristics. And so the I that says, I'm grumpy, I'm not being shown the proper respect, I'm so wonderful, I'm so terrible, I'm this, I'm that, I'm getting in your way. That I is to be renounced. And the I that says, O Lord, I am thy servant, I am thy child. And if you don't like that, I'm a child of this universe like everyone else. Right? That I, the universal I, if you will, that's the one you want to keep. Because it's hard to form sentences without a first personal pronoun. But when that I becomes problematic in those ways, I am, who is wealthier than I? I'm so well educated. I am the son of or daughter of so-and-so, and I'm not being shown the proper treatment by these people, or whatever that is. That I, Sri Ramakrishna calls that the unripe I. That I, we are to renounce. We're to give up that I. But the I that says, I'm a devotee, I'm a child of this universe, I am one of God's creatures, that I we keep. And so when you try and lecture or do anything else, it doesn't matter. Lecturing is just another thing people do, right? Whatever it is we try and do, we have to try and get rid of that unripe I, get rid of that involvement. And it's a real challenge. Yeah, it's a real challenge. You usually have something, no?
Yeah, I can come up with something. It's very difficult.
Oh, microphone.
It's very difficult what you want to do with using spirituality to manage the everyday life. Where to me, and I don't think it could be really done. To me, spirituality is is life and death. It's like it's either all or nothing, and it's no compromise. And you can't use your will because it's useless. So you say, okay, then where's the desire going to come from? And even so whatever desire there is, it's going to be like, I'm going to have to use my will for that desire. So you have to say, or I say to myself, then what could I use to, inspiration. That bypasses the will. And so I always look at something that the will's in the way. I've been working, I don't want to use my will anymore. I'm tired of it. It doesn't do anything. Why would I want it? It doesn't, and especially on the spiritual plane, it doesn't do anything. It can make you neurotic. So the antidote is to love yourself. You had it before, and that's the antidote. You love yourself, you know yourself, you take care of yourself, you serve yourself, and that person will be able to function better. But I enjoyed it. You came up with a lot of questions in my mind, so I enjoyed it a lot.
Okay. Thank you. Well, I guess we're good. Yeah, one more, okay.
How are your dogs doing?
Oh. Yeah, they haven't been digging under the fence lately. I guess they're all right. We had the nuns came, some of the nuns from here came to the desert, and so they got to meet the dogs. And it turns out our Akita seems to not like women. We don't have a lot of women coming to the ashram. Maybe she needs to get more exposure or something, but she does occasionally. But anyway, somehow when there's a group of women, she gets
Scared.
I think actually it's more like she's threatened. She's the woman there, right? So she doesn't want any others on her territory. All the boys, she loves all the boys. But anyway, I guess they're doing okay. They've got their problems, and they're not working on them. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I always found it strange that like monks, most religious orders don't get married, monks or nuns. So you try to find God and you don't get married. So biologically you don't procreate. So
Right.
essentially you're working your way into oblivion.
Yes. There was a sect
Why?
called the Shakers. You know the Shakers? And they preach celibacy and they're gone.
And so my point is like why is that desirable? Like, why wouldn't it be more desirable to like do everything that you'd want but not go into excess? Wouldn't that be harder in your path to finding?
Well, I missed the question. Can
So,
you repeat
like,
it?
not doing something or not venturing into something, isn't that intrinsically an easier path because you have just said, oh, this is bad, as opposed to doing it? So, gentleman talked about Molly, so wouldn't
Okay,
be...
so what you're saying is that it's more difficult to live moderately than to renounce entirely. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
So why is that not the path to realization as opposed to like more of an ascetic life?
Oh, it is. It is. Absolutely, it is. And, as Sri Krishna says in the Gita, no matter what path men walk, it leads to me. Sooner or later, we are all going to get there. Your path may or may not have anything to do with monastic life, and then maybe at some point it will. But the Vedantic idea is that we are all on that path. We all have our own unique relationship with the divine. And we are all slowly but surely making progress towards that goal, even in spite of ourselves and our little escapades and the things that we do. We are all on this path, and we will all reach it in the end. That is the teaching. So as far as, I think it sounds like a particular question about celibacy you were asking. Is that? No, not so much.
General, like moderation.
Moderation. Yes, moderation is yoga. Krishna also says that in the Gita. And I think you're right. In a certain sense, being moderate in your behavior can sometimes actually be more challenging than just quitting it outright. But you go to some of these 12-step programs and they can't moderate. They're going to drink and they have to just stop because once they start, they go off the deep end. Moderation isn't really possible for them. And so maybe in some future time it will be. But for now, they have to just stay sober to stay alive. So, and then other people don't have problems with that. They have to, they can be moderate and they can't give up. These are all just very individual questions. We each have our own path. And like I said before, we have to be true to ourselves, But yes, moderation in everything, in exercise and sleep, and work and eating and all these things. We want to do them all well. There was one story where somebody complained to the abbot of a monastery that the monks were eating too well. They were supposed to have less food and more austerity. And the abbot defended them. He said, yes, they eat well. I want them to eat well. He says, I'd like them also to sleep well and to work well and to meditate well and to study well and to do everything well. That was his response. And yes, I think that's a great attitude towards life in general. Do everything well. Yeah.
Maharaj, would you just say that That makes me wonder, like, if you really want to do yoga correctly and focus on that path, and then is the true excessive amount of anything can prohibit your progress. In other words, if I'm drinking and also want to do meditation and yoga and want to proceed, not just doing for the sake, but I want to go to the next step. In that case, austerity or giving up drinks could be much better to proceed in my journey.
Well, yeah, I mean, drinking clouds the mind. Okay, so this in particular, we want clarity. That's what we're trying to do through yoga. So, as Sri Ramakrishna's prescription for drinking in particular, since it's coming up today, was that if you want to drink, you drink 1 or 2 drinks. You offer them to the Divine Mother beforehand, and then take it as her prasad. And then after you've done that, he said, gradually, your desire to drink will become less and less. But he also said, take care that you don't go to excess, that you don't reel, and that your mind doesn't become clouded. Now, not everyone can do that. Some people, after they've had 2 whatevers, wine, beers, whatever it is, they got to have 10. You know, I heard, we've had a lot of AA people come to the monastery in Trabuco when I was there, and there was one guy who was telling his story, and he said that when he was, I think, like in 4th or 5th grade, he figured out that having chocolate milks from the cafeteria in school was a status symbol. The guys that had the chocolate milks from the lunch lady at the cafeteria, they were the cool guys. And so he wanted, and he didn't have enough money for these chocolate milks. So he started taking the chocolate milks. And he figured, his mind, he said, his first kind of alcoholic thought, he said, I realized when I was 9 years old that if 1 chocolate milk was good, 10 chocolate milks were better. You know, and that thinking, that planted the seed for his excess later in life. And that's the problem, is not everyone can just have 2 glasses of wine and offer them to the Divine Mother, take them as her prasad, and then stop. In fact, with alcohol, it's actually kind of worse because it lowers your inhibitions, right? I mean, that's why you do it, isn't it? Because you want to get rid of those inhibitions. And then one of the first things to go is, give me more, right? So that's a particularly dangerous one. Other things I think we can probably do more consciously. You know, if you're going to do video games and Mountain Dew or something, it might be a little bit easier to do that in moderation. Alcohol in moderation to me seems like it might be more challenging. But anyway, that was Sri Ramakrishna's prescription. Was 1 or 2 drinks, offer them to the Divine Mother or Krishna or whatever, offer them to God, be grateful for them, and then stop. That's the key, and then stop, right? So, and of course, like I said, gradually, what we want to do is through practice of japam and spiritual life, these urges that we have that make us uncomfortable, those urges don't become, they're not so pressing, they're not so shrill, they're not so urgent. That's a gradual development. You don't do that in a day. It takes time and practice of japam and yoga, and steady practice. We have to be steady in our practice. You have to get up and meditate is not so hard. After work meditation can be very challenging for people. After work, so many things are there to do, and I've got this and that and the other thing, and making a half an hour or an hour for God in the evening can be very difficult. That second meditation of the day, if we can stick to it, will absolutely change our lives. It takes resolve, not so easy to do. But if we do this, if we can stick to that practice, we find that these troublesome urges that make us feel remorse, whatever they are just not as troublesome. Like I said, it doesn't exactly strengthen our won't power, it just makes our won't power less necessary. That's what it does. But it's a gradual process. And so that's why they had these kind of bullet tricks that I gave today with When we feel an urge for something that we don't want to do, deep breaths, feelings of gratitude for however you want to put it. The struggle I'm in, my relationship with Divine Mother, her presence in my life, this moment in time, however you want to say it. Those are all depending on you. But to stop, be aware of your mood swings, stop, and then in real time, come up with a counteroffensive, which I just gave this simple one today, that counteroffensive. Also the 20-minute thing. Okay, God, I want my booze tonight, right? I'm giving you 20 minutes to change my mind. And then after that's happened, and you got the 20 minutes is up, and God hasn't changed your mind, and you go do your thing, you're not going to feel nearly so bad about it after it's over. Because you said, well, I gave God a chance. And if you keep this up, you will find that it becomes less and less inviting to go to excess in whatever it is. The 20-minute rule is a good one. I came up with that when somebody called the monastery in Trabuco and they wanted a joint at the end of a hard day at work. And, can I have this joint was the question. And what am I supposed to say? Yes? No? I can't say any of those things. I mean, if I say yes, I can't say yes. And if I can't say no, because if I say no, he's going to do it anyway. Then he's going to feel 10 times worse that he did it because I said no and he did it anyway, right? So I'm stuck. So this 20-minute thing I gave him, and it seems to work. Try it. Yeah.
Sparked a very interesting conversation, the idea of moderation versus abstinence. Say your goal is enlightenment. One could argue there are certain things that are not part of that path, such as pornography. If you could moderate that and say, I'm only going to do that for 20 minutes a day, right? And it's not an addiction. Just like I let myself have 1 chocolate milk instead of 10. Certain things just don't seem to have a place. So the idea of not including them at all versus trying to moderate, wouldn't you say that it'd be better to abstain from certain behaviors? And on the other side, we can be addicted to good things. Work can be addiction. Meditation, I once heard the story of, is it better to meditate for an hour a day or, 8 hours a day? And it was, 1 hour a day because you need to have time to integrate, and the purpose of life is to live it and not just, try to get to enlightenment as fast as possible and kind of bypass the whole experience of life.
Okay, so there's a lot in there. Are you done? Okay. Yes, you're absolutely right. In the first part, there are some things, and they vary from one person to the next, so it's difficult to give a blanket instruction, but there are some things that just have to be cut off. Like I say, that varies from one person to the next. You really need to talk to a spiritual teacher and go through details to figure out what's what for you. Generally speaking, yeah, the big stuff. What you mentioned, pornography, alcohol, or things that threaten your livelihood, existence. Oddly enough, there was a study I read a few years ago that actually said that the destructive, addictive nature of a video game called World of Warcraft. Have we heard of that one? World of Warcraft. This video game was so addictive that its destructive capability was actually comparable to heroin and cocaine. So really, that I think is a good measure of those things that just need to be cut. I never played the game, I don't know. I guess it's really addictive. I guess it's really good. But those kinds of things that threaten that are existential threats, those things we need to just cut off. You can't really dabble in them. The little things, a few drinks, chocolate milks, whatever it is, those kinds of things we are told to do consciously. Yes, I have this desire for this thing. Now I'm going to have this thing. Oh, my mind, this is called enjoying this thing, and then move on to the next thing. Those are for activities that are not existential threats. And then what you said at the end about, what did you say after that? That was celibacy, and then what? Was that it? I thought there was something else you said after that. I can't remember now.
That you can be addicted to things.
Oh,
that are
meditation.
positive.
That was it. That was the other one. Yeah, so that has to be a gradual process. There are people that do meditate 8 hours a day. You don't start there. It's just like he was pointing out, there's nothing intrinsically right or wrong about meditating 8 hours a day. It's where you are. So to start, one of the things we have such a hard time accepting in spiritual life is that this is not a sprint, it is a marathon. And we have to pace ourselves. We have, as St. Augustine Ramakrishna put it today, made our own bed, and we're lying in it, and it's going to take some time to get out of it. And we need to practice a balanced life, eliminating some of the existential poisons that threaten us. So, yeah, I would say that to start, if you can meditate 2 hours a day in the beginning, that's excellence.
I'm not there by now.
Right. If you can do, a half hour morning and evening in the beginning, that I think is enough to keep you going until you graduate to something else. And frankly, actually what they say is to the neuroscientists who study meditation, it's very trendy now, they say that 20 minutes a day is enough to see increased cortical folding in the brain after just a few weeks. Increased cortical folding in the brain is associated with better willpower, better memory retention, increased ability to focus, all kinds of indicators of a more prosperous lifestyle. And so they say 20 minutes a day is enough to medically see a change in the mind. I frankly don't think it's enough, actually. I'd say 20 minutes morning and evening is probably minimal, in my opinion. But anyway, that's, what do I know? They're looking at your brain, and they can actually see a difference. So it is doing something. So yeah, and then from there, you increase your pace. As you will find as you go on in this that the external life changes and begins to accommodate your internal life. That's really what happens. And as the external life changes to accommodate the internal life, you will have more opportunities to go deeper into your spiritual practice. Yeah.
One simple, my personal thing, that when I'm doing yoga for quite a long time because I had somebody as my guru. So
Is it on your microphone?
it's not sensitive.
Okay, all right.
Okay. So my problem is this: when I do sit for japa, maybe I'm there for 30 minutes, and if I am honest, not even 3 minutes I am cut off from this world. Not even 30 seconds, sorry. So how can I do that? I am thinking something else. I am doing japa, but something is going on back, another frame that is thinking something else. I mean, it's not throwing me out from my japa, but I am not 100% in japa.
Yeah, I understand. You're having trouble concentrating.
Yeah.
Yes. This is, of course, the holy grail of meditation, is concentration. And what Swami Brahmananda said is that if you can concentrate for 3 minutes, you have samadhi. 3 minutes is samadhi, okay? So to say that you can't do this for 3 minutes and that this is somehow a black mark on your character is not quite fair to yourself. To be able to sit down for 3 minutes and concentrate might take lifetimes of effort to get there. But the essential points, I think, that I've said in the past is that while we may not be able to concentrate perfectly, The fringe benefits of the exercise are totally worth it. And this has been documented now well for the last 15 years. Meditation has been studied, and its effect on our quality of life has been established over and over again. Not so much that you have to concentrate perfectly or it doesn't work. You know, I was at a school, Cal State somewhere, San Bernardino, and it doesn't matter. This student said, oh, I tried meditating for like a year or something, and I can't concentrate, I can't do it, it's not for me, so I quit, right? That was her position. And I think I said this here a while ago. We go to the gym and we lift the weights, right? And we drop it again. Is that failure? We lift it again, we drop it, right? And we can't hold it up forever. We have to drop it. Is there no effect to that? I mean, we are building a muscle by this exercise. There is a muscle in our consciousness that we are strengthening through meditation. Every time we focus the mind and then we lose the focus, and then we pull the mind back to focus again. Every time we do it, it's just like going to the gym like this. Same thing, right? We are exercising a muscle. Pull the mind in, and then it resists and goes away. And we pull the mind in, and it resists and resists. And we repeat this. Reps at the gym, same thing, right? We are strengthening ourselves, and when we are able to gather our mind, it will make our whole life better, because gathering your mind is what we need to do for everything, for every successful undertaking. We need to gather our mind, focus it on the object at hand, the current moment, whatever it is that we're doing, and then apply ourselves to it. The better we can do that, the more effective we're going to be. And then, of course, in addition to that, there's all kinds of ancillary purification benefits to meditation that make us happier and more cheerful. So, yes, okay, we haven't rung the bell, right? We haven't got perfect concentration. Stick to the path, continue doing this. Better and better things will come. Patience is required. Complaining about the fact that I can't concentrate will never help us concentrate. It's just another distracting thoughts. I can't concentrate is another distraction, just like I have to do a report for work. Yeah?
I'm not complaining. I'm asking your suggestion how I can keep the image of, portrait of Holy Mother or Ma Kali, whoever, continually when I'm doing the job.
Yeah, as far as I understand, as far as I know, there is no magic trick, right? There's no magic trick. What is required is purification and strength of will. And what we are doing through these practices is purifying ourselves and strengthening our will. And when we get to a level where the will has become so strong and the mind has become sufficiently pure, then what is called grace will descend and the concentration will be there, right? It will be not so much a concentration as a perception at that point. And that perception will lock our minds onto it. It's more of a revelation than a concentration at that point, right?
Actually, I'm asking for that, not that, what should I say? Not revelation, but having nothing else but my guru's or Thakur's image in front of me.
Right. What I'm saying is, I understand. We have an image in our minds, and we are trying to concentrate that image in our minds, right? Then what happens when we have concentrated this image in our minds? There is another power. This is the grace moment. There is another power that gathers our minds towards it. And we realize that the image we had in our minds was just that. It was an image in our minds. And then when this other experience happens, there is a reality that we perceive. So that concentration on the image in our minds leads us to the perception of a new reality. That is the idea. So that's why you're doing it, ultimately. In the meantime, because that's for most of us a long way off. In the meantime, what it does is it improves our lives, makes us better, happier people, more loving, more giving, more constructive people in this world. And I've been told by the nuns that it's time for me to leave.
Oh yeah, I know.
I think they want me to go to lunch.
I know.
Okay.
Yeah,
So thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. And I'll see you next time. Okay, namaste.